This is tutorial part 2 of dialog boxes with MATLAB. I've already introduced input DLG and message box in a previous little video, but this time I kind of want to combine and conclude a chapter with Excel and a specific example of listdlg, which is a little bit different than all the other ones that we've seen. As far as vocabulary, there's only one word: pairs. When things go by 2, we call it in pairs. And in this function, listdlg, we'll need pairs of arguments, so by 2. We'll also use Excel databases into listdlg. I showed all the input dialog boxes last time, but this time I'm only going to focus on one, which is listdlg. This is a little bit different because you can already see that the user can select all. They can select more than one of the values using the shift key. So it's a little bit different as far as getting inputs. You're not just getting one at a time, you might be getting a lot of inputs together. So it's example number 2. We're provided a menu of items at the cafeteria and I want to know if I have enough money to buy them. The input dialog boxes that we're going to use are input DLG for the budget and listdlg for the items to select. As far as output dialog boxes, I'll use one for the welcome message and I will use one for displaying whether I have enough money or not. Here is my Excel sheet. So I have apples, pizzas, yogurt, and I want to be able to select, because the last thing we want to do is create a code where the user has to type letter by letter each element they want to purchase. Welcome to the cafeteria. How much money did you find? Please select all your items that you want to eat. So I selected pizza and orange juice. So pizza is about $10 and orange juice is $1.23. I have $5. I obviously don't have enough money. So I should see a message of caution. Please look for more quarters. If I did have enough money, then I would have happy lunch. As far as the algorithm is concerned, it's a very small algorithm. We're going to upload from Excel, welcome the user, prompt for the budget. Then I'm going to select all the items from the list, calculate the cost, and decide if I have enough money. To win a little bit of time, I went ahead and did the easy part, and yet I have done mistakes that I want to go over. Welcome message, input DLG, remember, has a prompt first, a title second, the number of lines that you want each of those little fields to have, and then I hard-coded the letter 5 because I want $5. The cost, I don't have it, but in order to code the bottom, I just hard-coded a 1. As far as finding if I have enough money or not, I just do subtraction, so I subtract the cost. If I have money left, it'll be positive, the difference, and I can just do message box. On the other one, I decided to do warning. That way I already have that little orange triangle in my dialog box. So I'm going to run this and see there's already a couple issues. First of all, this one. It's like, how come I didn't get to click OK, and how come now I can't click OK? This is modal versus non-modal. Something that waits for me, budget is waiting for me to click OK to proceed, versus something that didn't wait for me because it didn't really need to. MATLAB doesn't need me to say, hey, I understood the welcome to proceed. So this is modal, it waits for me. This is non-modal, it does not wait for me. So that's already my first issue. It's not a mistake, an issue. The function that I introduced was UI wait. So wait for the user to do something. And that will already make one big difference. So now this became waiting for me, modal. Okay, and then MATLAB proceeds. Second mistake. Undefined operator minus for input argument of type cell. I do like showing mistakes because usually you see those during exams and all of a sudden you're confused. But remember that this is a minus sign and I have a cell. So budget, the only cell that I see right here is budget, is a container. A container that has doors and they're locked and we didn't tell MATLAB to go check inside. So my first reflex could be, well, go get the value inside. So open the doors using the curly braces and go get that value. Okay. It doesn't crash, so that's an improvement. But now I have $52. I actually made money by not eating. So that's not good. Why is it 52? Simply because this is what's going on in the machine. I subtract 1 from the letter 5. Remember that an input DLG returns a string. So this is the letter 5 that comes back. So I forgot to convert. And if I convert here, I no longer need to reference the cell array content 1 because this now will be a scalar. $4 left. Perfect. So those were already 3 minor issues. The first one is modal versus non-modal. The second one was the minus sign with the actual cell array. I needed to convert first. Now I can start doing my upload. So Excel is nums and then the text. Now I'm looking for my Excel sheet and I see it here, but notice how it's kind of gray, meaning it's not really in my folder. I need that little Excel sheet to be in the same directory. Right here it shows it, but it's inside this folder. So I'm going to cut it out of there and put it inside this folder. That's another mistake that we see a lot. Just because you see it here doesn't mean it's next to it. It could be grayed out and that means it's underneath or in a subfolder. So take it out. I also want the list of food. I don't just want the numbers. I actually need the food list. So cafeteria menu. Alright, by omitting the semicolon, I always like to see what my variables are. Nums, MATLAB does its job of a calculator. It extracts all the numbers from the file, and that's perfect. Remember, pizza was $9.99, so that's good. Food was all the text, and that's good, but I have a title. So now I'm going to have to play with column 2, column 1. What I would like to do is just to have my food, but just those. I don't want this title or headers, and I certainly don't want column 2. There are 2 ways to go around this. Either you delete row number 1, then you delete column number 2, or I'm going to show you how to slice. I mean, I can slice 2 to the end, but remember when you're slicing from cell arrays, you want to slice the containers. So food equals food, parentheses, not curly braces. You cannot slice the content. The doors are locked. But you can slice the container all you want. So, does it work? Omit the semicolon. And yes, I no longer have the first part and I no longer have column 2. So that's exactly what I want to show in my box. So let's go do the box and we're almost done. Now listdlg is a little bit different. Notice already in the yellow it's just name value. It's not even telling me options like the other words. So how does it work? Again, that documentation. Well, we don't really have much of an idea from the syntax, but read a little bit, and this is where name and values are pairs of arguments. They're going to go 2 by 2. If you put a name, it has to have a value that follows it. If you put another name, it has to have another value that follows it. So what does that mean? Well, in short, this box has a lot of properties you can control. What do you want to put in the box? What do you want to put as a title? Do you want to let the user select more than one thing? How about that box being too big? Maybe you want to change its size. There's a lot of things that we can control, and that's why it's a little bit different. List string is the first one required, but the other ones will come back to it. If it's required, I'm just going to copy it and use it as my first name. But it goes by pairs, so I have to have the value that goes with my list of strings. My variable that has my list is food. So right there is my first pair of arguments. Ta-da! In one line or two, maybe three, MATLAB went and pulled out all the food from the Excel sheet and lets me select them. I can select, I can use the control key, I can hit the button, and all of a sudden I have all the stuff that I want. Now, I wanted a full pizza and an orange juice. Okay. So this is what appears, because I'm going really step by step. I didn't even put anything in front. And 2 and 5. So what does that mean? I selected the second and the fifth element of my vector. So the second element was pizza, the fifth element was an orange juice. So it returns the indices, and that's what it says in the documentation. Selection contains the indices of the selected rows. So remember that vocabulary, index? It just tells me what position did I pick. From there, I can go to my nums vector. Sweet. Let's pick another one. Selection mode, I do want to be able to pick more than one, so I'm going to leave it alone. List size, let's take this one. Controls the box, so the default width and height is 160 and 300. If you notice, it was a little bit too big, so I'll change the height. So instead of 160, 300, I don't know. We'll see. 160, 200. A little bit smaller. I could have gone further. If I select all, then all my indices pop up. Why not? How about the prompt string? Well, select what to purchase. Select what to purchase. So that's why this one is a little bit different. Pairs of arguments, 2 by 2. There is no order of the pairs. I could have chosen to do the prompt string very first, the list string last. As long as you move them by pairs, MATLAB will understand what parameter you're playing with. On the left side, time to move. So, selection and OK. So selection, we understood, contains the indices of selected rows, and the second output, OK, is 0 when the selection is made or 1 when the selection is made. I personally have no use for OK. If you notice the bottom of my code, I don't have anything prepped for what happens in case the user doesn't do anything. So I really don't want to collect it. I just want to assume that the user will select something. I can make some assumptions. But no, if I have my selections indices, all I want is go into my nums vector and pull those values out. So if I pick value number 2 and 5, I want MATLAB to go like this. Well, that's called referencing. I want MATLAB to go in nums at those specific indices. So nums, and then those selection values. Now the rest will crash because I'm not finished yet. So temporarily, I'll hide it. And before I go further, I usually am tempted to put an S for plural. Run. So pizza and orange juice. So selection was 2.5, exactly what I was expecting. And the cost, MATLAB pulled out from the numbers selection 2 and 5. So 2 got taken out, 5 got taken out. So how do I calculate the total cost? What function can I use? The sum. So the sum of my selections and the numbers can add up to my cost. All right, final run. $5, full pizza and orange juice, and I don't have enough money, which is true. Let's test the other one. I have 3, lots of dollars, I want to eat everything, I can do it. So very short code, but listdlg is a little bit more interesting than the other ones. You can control a lot more things on this one. Here is the code, so if you want to look at it and pause peacefully, definitely take that opportunity. Do not learn these things by heart. None of us do. Remember that the documentation is your friend on this one. It will tell you and it will remind you what everything goes, where the arguments are specifically placed, and what data type they are. So have fun. It does officially kind of conclude the cell arrays, the Excel ideas, the modal versus non-modal. Now you just need to kind of learn and practice all of these, but it really becomes fun in the end.